Welcome to Lazer Radio. I'm Brad Sohner. This episode is brought to you by the new Lazer Bullet helmet. The perfect combination of aerodynamics and ventilation, the Bullet is designed with a narrow front profile and smooth top section with minimal venting for maximum aerodynamic benefit. The air slide system allows for ventilation on demand with quick and easy adjustment of the front vent cap. Compatible with both the Lazer LifeBeam integrated heart rate monitor system and the Lazer inclination sensor position monitor, the Bullet is available in both standard and MIPS versions. In stock and available now, visit your local Lazer dealer for more information on the Lazer Bullet. On today's show, we are being joined by Gage Hecht, who is actually on his way to Europe, I think tomorrow. Going to be heading over there. Gage is well known for both his skills on the cross bike and the road bike. You may see him rocking his Lazer helmet with the Alpha Bicycles cross team, and then he'll move over to the Race the Road with the Avolo cycling squad. We're going to talk about both of those, but we're going to get to the most pressing matters first. Gage, you're headed to Europe tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be back over there. It's been a little while since my last trip. The last one was going over there for Worlds last year for the U23 World Cyclocross Championships in Beals, Luxembourg. So it's pretty exciting to get to go back there and get to compete against the world's top cyclocross racers.
Now, for those people that aren't familiar, talk a little bit about kind of the balance you have between your trade team, but then also racing with USA Cycling. I assume this trip you're going on is with USA Cycling. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. So Alpha always takes good care of making sure we get the equipment and everything that we need throughout the season. They're really good about making sure we got those Muth bikes in order and all the core kits that we're going to be using. So it'll be good to head over there with that equipment that they've been kind enough to give me. And USA does a lot in supporting me while I'm over there. They house us, feed us, make sure that we get to races. So yeah, they take great care of us over there. This will be one of many trips that I've done with them, and I've enjoyed every one. They've always taken great care of us.
You were talking about your equipment with Alpha. I know we're here to talk about Lazer helmets are the reason we're here, but I got to say you are one of the luckiest dudes in the world to have Moots behind you. If I had to pick like one apocalypse bike, like one bike to ride for the rest of my life, it would be a Moots with like just regular mechanical shifting. Seems like the most perfect, like it'll never go out of style. It'll always be a great bike. You got to love that thing. Oh,
they're amazing bikes. I've loved riding them all. This will be my fourth year on them, and they've just been amazing. Like it's funny because they're pretty much bomb-proof since they're titanium. So you can feel good every time you go out there about like you can rail whatever you want, knowing that the bike's going to make it through no matter what you send it over. So it's pretty cool to have that confidence in the equipment, and it's pretty exciting to be able to practice as hard as I get to practice on them.
That's what freaks me out about carbon bikes. You know, I know they're strong and I know they've been through the testing, but you know, sometimes you're riding and you're like, I don't know if I want to make that jump or you know, try that thing or whatever. You always see fun things you want to try and ride when you're out riding, but yeah, I think having a titanium bike would be a game changer for that. So you'll travel over to Europe with your bikes. You bring your own bikes over.
Yeah, we'll pack up. I think we're packing them today, and of course, yeah, I guess it would be today. And then we'll head over, give them to the airline, pick them up, hopefully in Brussels. That's always kind of a little bit of a gamble.
Hopefully is the key word there. Have you ever lost a bike in transit? Have you ever had one of those situations where it's like a couple weeks or a bag and it's a couple weeks before you see it again?
Yeah, there's been a few times that we've lost them. It's not been a huge amount of times, but it's always kind of nerve-wracking, especially with like the shorter cross trips when you're racing 4 days later.
And the airline is like, we don't know where it is. You're like, what do you mean you don't know where it is? I need it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But I've never had a huge issue with having them lost before. I know I've had a few friends tell me stories about having to race on somebody else's bike or having to borrow that. So I've been pretty fortunate as far as that goes. They've always kind of gotten the bikes to me within 2 or 3 days of the flight, which is good.
What was your first bike you ever rode? You started racing when you were 9 years old?
Yeah, I was 9 years old. I think my first bike was my first race bike was a little Giant. I'm not sure what.
Was there a department store bike in your life before? I mean, how did you did you fall in love with riding bikes? I mean,
Well,
I assume you had a bike growing up as a kid.
oh yeah, of course. My dad used to race bikes when before I was born, and so he was always kind of had his fingers in the bike industry. And so I don't think he ever would have brought me to Walmart to buy a bike just because I don't think he it wouldn't
The
be
cardinal
good.
sin of real cyclists, you know.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't. I don't think he would have been happy if I brought home a Walmart bike. So
Good.
we always went to the local bike shop and picked up a bike when it was time to get a new one. I don't even remember what my first one was. I want to say my very first one. We went down to the local shop and it was a really tiny giant, like pretty much the size of a Strider.
Yeah, it's
Um,
sometimes hard for, buying that first bike for kids because one, they're going to grow like 2 feet in a year. And two, yeah, sometimes finding a bike small enough for kids that age can be tough.
exactly. So, but I always had fun. My parents always used to yell at me when I was little because I always loved trying to race my bike around the cul-de-sac. And um, initially when I was on training wheels and had them on the back, I'd actually go around a cul-de-sac, which is kind of on a hill. And going around the bottom of the cul-de-sac, I'd be on the outside training wheel and my front wheel. I wouldn't have any rear wheel on the ground.
Getting gnarly.
So, yeah, I guess it was pretty sick. I don't remember it at all, but it sounds like it was pretty fun.
You sound like
And
a
then,
rad little kid.
oh yeah. And then after we moved off to training wheels, I remember getting yelled at for riding through all the neighbors' yards quite a bit.
Well, look where it got you today.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you start as a road racer? I mean, I think a lot of people kind of start on the road and then move to cross, but you grew up in a pretty healthy racing scene in Colorado.
Yeah, so Colorado's always had an amazing racing scene. Back when ACA was around and Bethlehem Estes was kind of running the junior program, there was a really healthy amount of cyclists or juniors in the program, which was pretty cool. And so I started racing on the road when I was 9, and just kind of raced with IC3, which is my first team, International Christian Cycling Club.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of hung out with them. I made some friends in the industry, or not, yeah, just on the team. And I had a coach. His name was Dick Elliott, and he just told us, he's like, you know what, you got to try this new sport, or this sport that I've kind of fallen in love with. And we were kind of iffy about it.
Yeah.
I showed it to my first cross practice on a road bike, which was pretty sweet, and was dead last in every activity and every training exercise. So I remember being a little nervous and not really wanting to race, but we had already kind of bought a bike and had it on its way. So we were like, well, we might as well try the first race. And if you don't like it, we'll sell the bike. And it is what it is. And we went out to the first race and I ended up winning. So
it's easy to get discouraged as a kid, isn't it? If you're not immediately good at something, it's easy to
totally.
say, "God, this isn't fun." No one likes losing. No one likes being the last guy.
No, definitely.
But so you went out and won your first race. It's a pretty drastic change from a few weeks of practice to your first race. And I assume you had a real cross bike by then.
Yeah, I was riding, I believe it was a Redline Conquest, like the little blue bikes that pretty much every junior had at that time.
Well, it's one of the only bikes I think that fit a lot of the juniors.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were on the 600C version of it,
right.
But it was a pretty good bike for the juniors. It was great.
Did you have like a cycling hero growing up? I mean, did you get into watching pro racing when you started riding, or was it more of a participatory sport for you?
So I didn't watch a lot of pro cycling just because, I don't know, I couldn't sit through a 3-hour race because I was so hyperactive. But I always looked up to Danny, who was kind of always at the junior camps. It was kind of fun to see him.
Danny Summerhill,
yeah. And he was actually on my first cross team, the Mud Skippers. He was actually one of the coaches on that.
What a great cross team name.
Oh, it was so awesome. Yeah, I think there were like 30 juniors on that team, and it was like the Bad News Bears.
Yeah, cool.
It was pretty cool. It was a fun team to be on.
Nice. And I mean, now you find yourself on the same level as this guy that you looked up to when you started racing. Is it weird, kind of getting up next to Danny?
It is. It's really weird. I still have a little bit of, I think, awe. Like every time I see him, it's like, wow, I get to race against him, and it's pretty cool to be able to race next to the guy that kind of was a role model to me when I was starting.
Yeah, sparked your interest.
Definitely.
Danny is a good example of someone who is kind of, or went through exactly what you're going through right now, which is this constant battle to balance cross and road, because you're incredibly talented in both. You clearly have a future in both disciplines. You've had results in both disciplines. Which way do you lean on one? I know it's like picking your favorite kid.
Oh.
You never want to say you have a favorite, but right now, do you lean one way or the other?
It's so hard to choose. Like,
Yeah.
I know every time I'm in the season, I'm always like, well, this might be my favorite discipline, but then the season moves on to the next one, and during that season, I'll be showing a little bit more favoritism to that. So it's really hard to say which one I like more. I mean, I've always liked the off-road and kind of like the variations that cross holds, but
Yeah.
I've also really grown to like the camaraderie and all the adventures you get to go on the road as well.
I was going to say, I have a feeling if I asked you this question, like right after your Redlands Criterium win last year, you might have a different, you might be favoring the road a little more. It seems like that team is a blast. Let's move to talking about your road season or road career, riding with the Evolo squad under Mike Creed, which is like the best director you could ever ask for. It seems like a blast.
Yeah, it was a great year. I knew a few of the guys coming on the team. I knew Jason Saltzman from racing on the NCCF specialized program under Larry Nolan, and that was a pretty cool team to be on. And so it was pretty cool to join the team with him along with Michael Hernandez, who I raced on Hot Twos with, which is another great program. It's cool to see that Toby is just developing so many great riders out there. So it was pretty fun to join the team with those two.
It seems like they're cool with your cross ambitions too. Not that there's much that they can do in November, December, but there's obviously some communication between you and the team of like, hey, I've got to do my cross campaign as well.
Yeah, they're pretty good with it. It's sometimes hard when the seasons overlap. Like, I know a lot of the guys on the road are like ready to get rolling mid-February when I'm coming off of Cross Worlds, which is always kind of a fun time to get base miles in when you haven't done any miles in the past.
You've been focusing on hour-long efforts for the last 3 weeks or 3 months, and then you have to switch to these long multi-day road races.
Oh yeah. And we did a camp in California last year, and I don't think we did like 2 days that were under 2 hours, which was a total shock to the system. I know we did multiple days where we were climbing over 10,000 feet a day. So
how do you do that for the training geeks out there? How do you make that transition? I mean, do you just jump in with both feet and just start banging out the long, century days?
Yeah, it was rough. I've never done a training century, which is kind of funny. The only time I've done century was my first century was actually the Gila this year. Which was kind of a cool thing to do as a race, and I don't think it was quite as bad in the race because you get it over with really quickly.
Sure.
But yeah, it's at the camp we were doing 80 to 90 milers most days, and I think going into that camp I had about 5 days of training under my legs, which was all just enough, like just long enough rides to kind of get my legs back under me after taking a break after Cross World. So
you do take some time off. You do have a break in there somewhere. Is it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off the bike?
It's typically around 2 weeks, but it's like as much time as you can get while not like losing all of the fitness that you have. Like you
Putting
want
on 20 pounds.
Exactly.
What do you do in your time off? Like what's your thing outside of cycling? I know you're a pilot, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually been trying to learn how to fly planes. I've been kind of slowly chipping away at the license here. It's kind of hard when you're in and out so much because every time you leave, you kind of lose a little bit of the currency and the practice that you had. So you kind of have to retake some lessons to gain back those skills. But it's been pretty cool. I just actually passed my stage tech to fly cross country solo by myself.
Oh, nice. So like if I chartered a G6 out of Denver, could you fly us up to nationals in Reno?
Oof. I don't know if I could fly a G6. That'd be
how about a Cessna? I'm not super up to date on my planes.
I might be able to do that with with a couple hours of practice, maybe.
All right, we'll get you in a simulator beforehand. I'm sure you'll be fine. You seem like a smart kid.
I'll do my best.
You're mostly flying like single engine planes, I assume.
Yeah, it's all single engine right now. There's not really too many high systems on there. Like the gear stays down the entire flight. You're really only controlling the throttle and the actual axes of the airplane using the yoke. So it's fairly simple, but there's also a lot of stuff that's going on in the airspace around you. So it's kind of a good plane to start on.
No barrel rolls or anything like that yet.
Not yet. Hopefully that doesn't happen accidentally.
If you're in a barrel roll, you've got a problem. Something has gone terribly wrong. How does one become a pilot, or how does one start flight training? Do you just wake up one day and say, I want to fly? Was it a family member, a friend that was a pilot?
So my mom worked for United when I was younger, and we went on a lot of standby trips just because we had that ability to just hop on a plane kind of spur of the moment. If we had a free weekend, we'd fly somewhere cool. And I got to take a couple trips to Hawaii, and I think that kind of sparked my interest a little bit. I didn't realize it at the time, but as I grew up and started traveling for cycling, I kind of realized how much I actually liked the flights going back and forth through the races.
Yep.
And one of my friends got a flight simulator for the computer, and I got one as well later on, and that kind of sparked my interest even more. My grandparents, I believe it was for my birthday, got me what's called a preview flight. And they pretty much take you up for an hour, let you take the controls a little bit and see how it feels to fly a plane. And that really just sent me into it. I was super excited to fly after that.
From that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you. I still love flying. I fly twice a week or whatever for work going all over. But every time that plane takes off and every time you look out the window from 15,000 feet or 30,000 feet or whatever you're cruising at, it's still like amazing. Like, man, all these people just up here in this big metal tube flying around.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I'm like the dork on the airplane who keeps the window open the entire time and my eyes are glued outside.
Is there a career in flying for you, maybe after cycling?
Yeah, I'd love to make a career out of it, whether it's flying for an airline possibly like Delta or United, or maybe finding a corporate organization to fly a jet for, which would be pretty cool. But somehow I'd like to be in the aviation industry. I think it's a cool industry to be in.
Maybe you can fly the Lazer private jet.
Ooh, that'd be pretty
fly
sweet.
all the Lazer execs around. No, I don't think they
that'd be
private
awesome.
Jet. I think you got to sell a few more helmets before before there's a Lazer private jet.
Definitely.
Very cool. How often do you fly? I mean, do you go up once a week? What's the flight training program like?
It varies depending on the time of year. I typically try to concentrate it in certain sections so I don't waste my money just doing one flight every 2 weeks. So I'll take a break for a while during a dense part of the season, and then when I got some time, I'll try to hit at least 2 to 3 times a week. And that also gives me a chance to build up on the financial side, get some prize winnings during the dense part of the season and then throw them all in the flight lessons. And yeah, it's a weird schedule sort of to deal with, but it's good.
Sounds like fun. I want to go up. When you get your license, promise me you'll take me up in a plane.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Good. I'll do some reporting from 15,000 feet or however high the single engine. We do some laps around the course. You can do a little recon.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So heading over to Europe from here, do you like going over to Europe? I mean, do you like spending time over there, spending significant amounts of big blocks in Europe? Are you comfortable over there at this point?
Yeah, I love going over there, and I've been over. I think I'm in this might be the 12th or 13th trip I've had over there, and I've been over to Sittard pretty much every time I've been over in Europe, and so the USAC houses over there has kind of become like my second home. I know kind of the entire area of Sittard, which is the town we stay in, really well, and it's nice, and it's a nice quiet area where you're not in a super busy part of a city. So you can kind of go into town and get whatever you need. It's got a nice little bit of European flair to it, but it's also got the American amenities that you need to get used to.
That house in Sittard is so important for so many junior racers. And, I think there's a lot of people that don't really understand what USA Cycling does in terms of trying to develop this pipeline of talent that we always talk about. And that house in Sittard is a big part of it. It's basically a house that's owned by USA Cycling. The Development Foundation puts the money in to, maintain it and basically bring kids over and give you a taste of cyclocross racing in Europe, high level cross racing, which without that for most American kids would be near impossible to get to Europe. I mean, what other opportunity would you have to get to Europe if it weren't for that USA Cycling program?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few other avenues I know you can take, but they're not quite as affordable nor effective as what I've seen at USA Cycling. They do a really good job at.
Or as widespread. I mean, maybe it's a few spots on a team that will do a European campaign and send some kids over, but these USA Cycling trips take, 15 kids over at a time?
Yeah, and they have so much experience with it as well, so they've done so many trips, they know exactly what to expect out of everybody, and they know all the races like the back of their hand, so they do a really good job of making these camps a success for all the athletes that come over there.
What specific races are on your schedule for this trip, this run? This is a big block coming up. I mean, a lot of big races in this sort of pre-Christmas block.
Yeah, so this is the Europeans. This is like their big cyclocross block of racing. I think this is, for most of the Belgians, this is like the most important, outside of Worlds, of course, the most important series of races. It's called the Christ period.
Yep.
And it's everybody's on winter break from school, and most of the workers are on holiday, so the fans are fairly available to be at races. So they just put down as many UCI races as they can in that block of time. And so while I'm over there, we're going to be doing 2 of the World Cups on the UCI schedule, which are Namur in the Walloonian province, and Zolder on the F1 track in Flanders, which is where they had Worlds 2 years ago.
Sure.
And both of those courses are amazing. I love racing on both of them. And then between the 2 races, we're going to do a race called St. Nicholas, and that one looks pretty cool too. It looks like it has quite a bit of sand in it, which will be cool. I always like racing in the sand over there. It's a lot different than the sand here.
Yeah, sort of similar to the legendary Koksijde course, right?
I don't think it has quite that much, but yeah, it's definitely got that little bit of technical similarity to it. Yeah. And
then you'll be home before Christmas. How long do you stay over there?
So actually, I'll be over there until 2 days after Christmas.
Wow.
Zolder is always the day after Christmas.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do our little Christmas celebration at the house.
Yeah.
In the morning, and then we'll head out to training at the Zolder course and get to preview on Christmas Day, which is pretty fun.
Are your parents bummed you won't be home for Christmas?
Yeah, they're bummed, but I've been doing this. This will be my 4th year of missing Christmas with them. So
right.
We always plan another Christmas celebration after I get home, so everybody kind of has a chance to celebrate.
The Gage Christmas. Special
Yeah,
Christmas.
I guess so.
Hey, what has been your biggest result in cross? We're talking about these World Cups. You've been on the podium. You've brought home World Championship medals. What are you most proud of in your cross career so far, and what would be sort of your golden standard for your next big result?
That's really hard to say. I got 3 big races that really stand out to me on that one. The first one being Koksijde, the first ever race I did in Europe. I didn't really know what to expect, and I think I just got really lucky with the lines I picked that day and ended up winning, which is super cool. It's cool to win on that course. The next one is probably Tabor World Championships, my first year as a junior over there. Pretty much racing in the podium slots the entire race and landing 4th at the finish, which is amazing. I had no idea I had that in me.
I watched that race, and it was awesome. I mean, this was the one where you battled with those guys pretty much into the last corner, right? It was 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. You guys were all together.
Yeah, Ailey was sitting a little bit off the front of our group. I don't know if he was having the best day out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just a little bit ahead of us. He had developed a gap in the last lap, and Max and I were coming into that last corner, and just slipped a pedal. I think I think I either skipped my pedal on the ground or something like that, and it caused the chain to drop off the chainring, which in turn I had a couple pedal strokes without the chain on. So that didn't help me in the sprint, but I'm still super pumped about just having the opportunity to be in that position.
Do you play that over and over in your mind? Like, does that pedal stroke stick in your memory as this moment of like? Do you think about it when you're racing or preparing for races? Does it kind of come back to haunt you, or have you moved on? I mean, you're past it now.
No, I really wasn't even that bummed about it. I was having a blast that entire race.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the videos, they have those like little flat top things.
Yep.
And I remember I was having fun jumping those all race and
Getting a little air.
Yeah, I really like wasn't even thinking about the fact that I was competing for the podium the entire time. I was just having so much fun. Those were my kind of conditions. I love the ice and those ruts that were out there that day. So I was having a good time anyways. I wasn't really even that bummed that I dropped my chain. I mean, it would have been cool to be on the podium and all, but I was still super happy.
And what's your third?
Third one was this year. It's at Cincy. Sorry, that first day I was able to hang on with Stephen Hyde.
Oh yeah.
Which I still can't believe is I'm there with him. I started that race like just hoping for a top 5, and I saw Curtis go initially, and I chased him down and started thinking like, wow, that was probably not a good idea. That was probably too early. And I saw Steven go and knew that was the place to be.
Yeah.
I grabbed onto his wheel, and I remember looking back and thinking, wow, I guess I am off the front right now with Stephen Hyde. Let's see if we can make this thing stick. And the entire race, I was just kind of like surprised and shocked that I was still able to hang with him. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a big sort of a rival moment of your career. I mean, a turning point where you realize, like, I can ride with the best Americans.
Yeah, it gave you that little. I mean, it's still like a huge thing to race with Stephen Hyde, but it gives me a little bit of confidence. Like, wow, I actually can race here now. I don't need to be afraid to be trying to conserve during races anymore. Not following these guys' wheels. I can do something in these races, which is pretty cool.
And you can use it going over to Europe. You can say, hey, if I can ride in the front in the United States against guys like Steven who can ride in the front here, then certainly I belong at the front of some of these World Cup races.
Definitely.
Yeah. How are you feeling at this point in the season? I mean, you haven't had any major injuries to deal with. Seems like you've been in pretty good shape for the last few months.
Yeah, I've been pretty blessed this season with the safety I've had. I mean, of course, you have the few bumps and bruises that you get throughout the season. It's cyclocross, so it's bound to happen at some point. But nothing like major that's prevented me from performing well, which has been awesome. I've been blessed with that. So
what's been your biggest cycling injury? I remember you had a hand issue for a while, didn't you?
Yeah. So last year at Ogaride, the World Cup, that's a week before Worlds. I injured my thumb. It was the first lap, and they had just gotten freeze the night before, so it was all the mud that was on the ground the day before was all rutted out.
Yeah,
and,
great.
So like early in the first lap, there was a crash that happened, and I was the first one to make it, or the last one to make it through before that crash like blocked the entire field. And I actually got on Michael Van Turnout's wheel, I believe. And I was just so stoked to be hanging on his wheel because that's a huge name over there.
Sure.
And I really wasn't paying attention to the lines I was taking anymore because I was like, oh, this guy knows.
Follow this guy. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And he obviously knew the speed and the technique he needed to use for the line, and I'd never taken the line before, and just slipped my front tire a little bit, and I think I caught my right thumb on the fence that was right next to me. So I can't remember exactly what happened. I believe I broke a piece of the bone off in the joint. So it wasn't broken or anything, but I did have to wear a brace for a little while. And I had to actually race in a brace at Worlds, which was definitely interesting, trying to hold the handlebar, hit the brake, and go down a lot of those drops, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. Cross is one of those things where those little injuries really matter. On the road, you can kind of adjust and maybe shift your position a little bit to take the weight off off one hand, guys racing with broken collarbones, stuff like that. But you can't really do that in cross because the finesse is so important, especially in the hands. Oh,
definitely. Like just, it's not so much about like how hard you can grip the handlebars, but it's how like delicately and precisely you can hold the bike under you.
Was it weird racing in a brace? I mean, did it affect you majorly? Did it go like, was the brace up your wrist and just covering was it a thumb?
It was, yeah. So it went from like the mid joint of my thumb down to my wrist, to kind of hold the thumb steady. And it's still didn't completely solve the issue or like completely fix the pain and everything. So there's pain there during the race, which I'm sure is not helping my focus. But if you watch the course in Beals, it was probably one of the hardest courses I've done over there. It definitely ranks up there with a lot of the World Cups. And there were a few drops in there that were just super bumpy. And the final off-camber drop, that I know there's a lot of bloopers that came out in the reel just because so many people were crashing and falling sideways down it. That was always a rough one because the way I have my bike set up, it's the brakes are reversed. It's just a habit I've got, or the way I set it up when I was little, and I've always kind of held on to that. So I couldn't hit the front brake on the descents, which is kind of hard to modulate speed since my brakes were switched, and so those drops were definitely a little bit sketchy.
Yeah.
So I'd always kind of roll into them really slow, and then like try to manage momentum as best as I could before the bottom, and then ride out of it. So it definitely wasn't the most efficient method of riding, but I guess it worked out all right.
Is there any other advantage to the switch brakes other than, just habit for you and it's comfortable? Is there any other reason to ride the brakes switched?
So the reason we did it originally is one of my coaches talked to us about it, and it's when you're dismounting and you want to adjust your speed while you're gliding with your hand on the top tube.
Yep.
If you have your right hand on the top tube and your left hand on the brake, and you hit right as you still have your brake a little held down while you're getting off. If it's your front brake, the bike will tend to like flip over the front wheel,
right?
Which is not a great thing. I mean, I think if you can dial it in, it can be effective. But when I was little, you lose control of the bike, and since you're not super strong, it's kind of hard to manage. So
right.
we switched it to the left side, or the rear brake to the left side.
Yeah, because you're dismounting and rear mounting on the left side of the bike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what'll happen if you still got a little brake in there while you're actually getting off the bike, the rear wheel will just lock up a little bit, which isn't an issue at all.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, but that's the only real reason I have for it, other than that it's habit now.
Is it ever weird riding? I mean, do you ever ride other people's bikes and like, maybe forget a little bit, grab a little too much brake?
My road bike is set up regular.
Oh, interesting.
Like the brakes are regular on my road bike.
Why is that? I mean, so you can make the switch. You can.
I can make the switch. It's just it's nice to have that on my cross bike, since the braking I think is a little bit more important to have precise on the cross bike.
Yeah. It's kind of like switching from a fixie to a road bike. It's like you can do it, but maybe it might take the first couple times you have to brake to remember, like, either, I can coast, or, I can't coast if you're moving to a track bike.
There's been a few times I've gone to, like, in a grassy field or something, lock up the tire on my first ride back on a cross bike. And
yeah, just get comfortable again.
Yeah, I've hit the front brake pretty hard, and the rear wheel comes off the ground pretty high, and kind of scare myself for the rest of the ride, but... Yeah, it's surprising how fast you kind of adjust to that.
While we're talking about braking, let's do some pop culture. Where are you on the disc brake debate?
Oof, that's always a fun one. I always liked my Canis back when I was riding them, but now that I'm on discs, I've really enjoyed the transition between the two. We just started riding full hydro recently, which is super nice. It brakes really well. I like how the brakes adjust for, like, when you have mud and it's wearing on the brake pads, it adjusts really nicely. So I've kind of enjoyed the transition between the two. I'm not sure what the plan is for road season next year, but there's always a possibility that in the future I could be riding discs on a road bike, and I'm not sure how that's going to go, but we'll see. It's a thing that I'd like to try, definitely.
Yeah, at least give it a shot, see how it works out. But then, of course, the debate is that, either the whole peloton has to be on them, or nobody can be on them, or whatever. That's above our pay grade to decide.
Yeah.
You're in kind of an interesting time in the sport. You've been through a lot of sort of new technical innovations in cycling, I guess. a bike is a bike. There hasn't been much change in terms of cycling technology, but now, yeah, with the disc brakes and hydro braking on the road and cross and electronic shifting. Are you on electronic shifting or mechanical shifting on your moots?
On the moots, we're full electric. So we rode the Ultegra Di2 all the beginning of the season, and we kind of made the switch over. We're riding Dura-Ace Di2 shifters now to compensate for the hydros. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, right. Have you run out of battery on a training ride yet?
I have not. There's been a few times I've clicked both the buttons to look at the light and been like, oh, I probably should charge this tonight.
Time to turn around.
Yeah, time to go back. But yeah, they've been super reliable. I haven't had any issues with them.
Oh, nice. Do you go out and ride do you ever get to ride just to ride, or is all your riding these days pretty much training oriented? I mean, do you still get to go out and do the fun social group rides?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I still go do group rides. In fact, my coach, Jim Lehman at Carmichael Training Systems, he always has me go out whenever the group ride is still going. I do a group ride in the South Metro Denver, and I get to talk to a lot of guys that I kind of grew up riding with, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And also just like on the endurance sort of days when we want to do some cross oriented training, I'll pretty much just go out and rip around on the cross bike for an hour and a half or 2 hours, which is like one of my favorite things to do is like set up a course or something, find a section that I'm not super strong at and just try to hit it faster and faster every time, or maybe try to bust out a few hot laps.
Yeah.
I just have fun with that sort of thing.
It reminds me of Jeremy Powers. I know we saw in his Behind the Barriers videos, that like sand pit training ground thing that he has set up there. Yeah, very similar. Just go out and ride and try and focus on your weaknesses and improve on that. Speaking of Jeremy, this is a perfect transition because I was doing a little bit of research before the taping here, and I came across Shred the Stuff on YouTube, which is a new YouTube series featuring Brandon Fix and Gage Hecht. You guys have taken a camera around this season.
Yeah, so it's been pretty fun. We've it's not super high-end filming or anything, but it's kind of our way of showing everybody that watches us kind of what happens when we're at bike races and we go around. We've gone out and interviewed a few people. We've interviewed a few guys from Cannondale. We talked to let's see, who else have we talked to this season? We've always interviewed our teammates, which is always kind of fun. People in and around the races.
I noticed a lot of it is sort of these, like you guys it's hanging out in the tent, and then, all your friends will just sort of pop in and out, and you guys will grab a few words with them as they sort of come in and out.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like if something fun's going on, or if something sparks their interest, we'll pull out the camera real quick and take a video of it, and we always just kind of have fun with it. It's pretty much a pretty good representation of what kind of like life on the Alpha team is like.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. I think it's very, just like Behind the Barriers, it's a very good look into, what life is like when you're not racing the bike, which is, I think, how, most people see you most of the time. You're kitted up and on the bike, but it's a very good example of what it's like behind the scenes. We got to get Sam Smith embedded with you guys. He was the guy who produced most of the Behind the Barrier things. Maybe I'm going to start a crowd fund to see if we can get Sam on board with you guys, maybe for a few races. I think those would be some good episodes.
Oh yeah, it'd be great.
Whose idea was it? How did that come about? Was it like one day Brandon just shows up with a camera and he's like, "Hey, we're going to make a YouTube series," or what was the catalyst to that?
So it's always kind of hard in a sport like cyclocross to market, or it's always important to market yourself, and it's always kind of hard to find a way to do that and kind of show the personality of who you're trying to market. And we sat down and talked about it early this season at the Alpha Bicycle Camp up at Steamboat when we were doing like the Moots factory tours and everything. We sat down and talked about seeing if we could find a plan to better put ourselves out there on social media and stuff. And Brandon and I came up with the Shred the Stuff idea, and it just kind of started the ball rolling there. We brought his iPhone out to a race, and I think that our first interview was actually at Rochester this year with the Donnelly guys. Lance and Jamie Driscoll, and just kind of kept going from there. We've had fun with it. It's been a really fun experience.
I love that you guys are even thinking about that at this point. This idea of like, we have to be more than just bike racers, and that you're clearly thinking about the next step and life outside of just the hour that you're on the bike racing.
Definitely.
You're part of the generation of kids that get that, that it's not always who's the best bike racer. Sometimes it's who's the best marketer to themselves.
Definitely.
Which is sort of the business that you're in. I mean, like it or not, you're, you kind of have to be a celebrity at some level. Just being a good bike racer isn't enough anymore, is it?
Definitely. Yeah. It's getting harder and harder, but it's also nice that now that we have the tools, to market ourselves like that. Back, not long ago, I mean, not many people had the ability to make their own publications like
Sure.
YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. So it's kind of cool to have the ability to be able to make a public announcement whenever you want, and it's cool.
It's a tough line though, being a bike racer, between, putting all your eggs in that basket of, looking for your validation on social media and trying to pump out content all the time. But also you got to kind of be able to put that stuff aside and focus on yourself and do your own thing. And, sometimes step away from that social media.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm not much of a social media person. I mean, if I wasn't needing to market myself, I probably wouldn't be on Instagram much, or I wouldn't be posting really at all, if any.
Yeah. You're not a natural sharer. You don't want people in your life.
It's not that I don't want people in my life. It's just like I don't feel the need to pull out my phone and take a picture of what I'm doing and having to tell like the world that every moment of the day. But it is kind of fun when you're racing on a team like Alpha and got the guys around you to kind of share a piece of the fun that I'm having with the people that watch us.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you get good content like you guys have over there at Alpha. It seems like a blast.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, I hate to say this, but we're running out of time, so we got to wrap this up here. I know you probably got a lot to do, packing up for Europe. Early flight tomorrow. When you headed out?
I believe 9-ish,
right,
somewhere in there. I need to check in right now, so I'll
get to it, man. You got to
finish,
you got to get a good window seat. Make sure you can look out.
Oh yeah, get the window seat. I got the silver status on United, so I'll see if I can get my Economy Plus upgrade.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed for you. We're over the best. Maybe even does United do international business upgrades?
They do, and I've gotten them a few times. I've been pretty lucky the few times I've got them, because you get to lay flat on the seat,
Yeah.
take a good nap, and wake up in Belgium, which is always good.
All right. Well, I'm feeling good about your chances for this trip. I'm sending you some good vibes. And we'll see you at the races. By the time most people hear this, you'll be well underway with your European campaign. So on behalf of all American cycling fans, we wish you the best and hope you can bring home some good results.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brad, for having me on this. Thanks, Lazer, for hosting the show.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. That is Gage Hecht of the Alpha Bicycle Company Cyclocross team and the Avolo Road team. Gage, thanks for taking the time. Good luck out there, and we'll talk to you again soon.
No problem. Thank you very much, Brad.
Thanks. This has been another episode of Lazer Radio. Be sure to check out more great shows on the Wide Angle Podium Network. Until next time, I'm Brad Sohner, saying thanks for listening.